This is Astrazeneca. This is Astrazeneca. Video 21st century. Hamzambo family here. Welcome to the Black Fire Network 54 corresponding show. A show we get together and get to discuss what is trending and topical across the beautiful continent, also known as Al-Kebulan, or you might also call it Africa. My name is Pikes, and I'm delighted that you have decided to join us on this particular broadcast. And of course, the goal of this particular one is to enlighten you what is happening in South Africa, what is happening in the west of Africa, and all other different parts of the beautiful continent. Remember, you can get interactive with us, of course, on our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, Black Fire Network. We are also on Facebook, Black Fire Network Radio Station. And you can also find us on Twitter as well, Black Hot Fire. In case you also do have a question, you can also email us direct. You can shoot us an email, which is blackhotfireafrica@gmail.com, and we shall be able to respond on the different issues that perhaps you might like to raise with the Black Fire Network 54 corresponding show, or also other different shows on the Black Fire Network. I also want to urge us to visit the www.blackhotfirenetwork.com. It's our official website. Once you are there, you can create your own personal profile. And of course, it's very, very simple. It's not difficult. Creating your own personal profile doesn't take a lot of time. You just have to put in your name and perhaps even a pseudonym. You can decide you don't want to use your actual name. You just want to use another different name, and you shall still be able to interact with the rest of the family. We also do have the Black Fire Network website, the Black Fire Network app. It's very, very easy to use. If you are using Android, you can simply head over to Google Play Store and search for the Black Fire Network. Black Fire Network, you shall find it. It has the flame logo. I want to apologize. We were not able to have the Africa Today show yesterday, but today we hope to resume. We had a bit of challenges with the lights in here, the electricity here. But nonetheless, that particular matter has been sorted out. Before we start off, I want to remind us that you do have a tour to Tanzania later on in April, from April the 12th to April 27th. We shall be in Tanzania, and we are hoping to go to Dar es Salaam as well as Zanzibar. In case you would like to join us on that particular trip, kindly feel free to get the information from us. We shall be sharing that information on the network website. Like I said, it's www.blackhotfirenetwork.com. There are lots of interesting things to see in Tanzania, and not just the culture, not just the scenic beauty, but even, of course, the hospitality of the people. You shall be able to just go and see what's good in Tanzania, in Dar es Salaam. And in case you're wondering, of course, what other opportunities lies there? There is also opportunities in fields such as real estate, in fields such as processing, and even a value addition, among other different sectors that you might decide perhaps those are the areas you want to focus on or put your investments towards. We did have Sister Sharon Hort. She was telling us about her experience in Tanzania, and she said that she is hoping later on to get an apartment in Tanzania. And of course, that is actually a good look, because you can decide to have a second home in Tanzania as well as other different places. We have also had a situation of Rwanda. In Rwanda right now, people are not able to travel as much and see what's good in Rwanda. But nonetheless, what has been said is that there has been the lifting of the lockdown situation in Rwanda. And therefore, people right now, they can be able to move about and also enjoy Kigali. And not just Kigali, you also do have other wonderful places in Rwanda. Even though it's a tiny country, there are also other different places that you can also get to enjoy, not just the capital city. And talking about the COVID restrictions, there have been so many countries that have been affected to a very, very large extent. For example, Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was, of course, at some point talking about the second wave, and they wanted to go and lock down the country again. But I believe that would actually hurt the economy largely. Right now we're talking about countries trying to organize their budgets for this particular year, 2021, and also 2022. But of course, the budgets have been cut by a very, very large margin, because the revenues did not come in. If you have closed down businesses, You cannot expect that the money, that would have, of course, coming in form of taxes is coming in. For example, the tourism sector, I'm just using one particular sector. The tourism sector has been widely hit, and therefore, these governments that rely heavily on the tourism sector, for example, Zanzibar is one of the places that is heavily reliant on tourism. These particular places will be having a very, very big shortage. And of course, there is a very, very important question: what can be done really to recover for the countries that have been hit badly by this COVID-19? What can be done? One of the things I do believe is that there should be some fiasco measures. I understand that there are not many African countries that have had relief stimulus package. We are talking about the USA and the relief stimulus and other different European countries. And in Africa, we have not had the same kind of a response. South Africa was trying at some point. They were talking about having 12% of the GDP, an amount equivalent to 12% of the GDP being given as a relief, the stimulus package for this particular country. But of course, when it comes to funding of that particular one, it's also difficult unless the World Bank comes in and gives in that particular kind of money. The South African people will still continue to suffer. Egypt at some point also had a particular conversation on having a stimulus package. And those are some of the countries that I do know are trying to, salvage their businesses and also salvage their economies. But I do believe that even 12% is not enough. That's a very, very small amount. Not 12%. It's something, but then again, I do believe it's not adequate. Long-term measures need to be put in place to make sure that economies are able to recover, especially on the African continent. And I'm talking about other different economies that are suffering. Zimbabwe, even before we didn't have the COVID crisis, we have talked about the situation with inflation, where someone would have to go with lots and lots of money to just buy a piece of bread. And of course, also buy other common commodities like sugar, like rice, among other different things. And therefore, even before we did have the COVID-19, situations were dire in Zimbabwe. But right now, I do believe the government is also trying to see how they can be able to salvage what is left of the economy in Zimbabwe. One of the things that, of course, was a big challenge for them was also trying to pay their staff, their health workers. The health workers, of course, are at the front line in terms of responding to any kind of medical situation and the health crisis. But then again, they were also not able to pay their health workers. At some point, one billionaire decided to step in and be the one paying for the health workers. But of course, there's only so much one billionaire can do in a country where we do have the healthcare system not working at all. But nonetheless, we are looking forward to see that perhaps there will be something done in Zimbabwe this particular year. Fiasco measures alone will not be enough. I also do believe that a stimulus package would go a long way. But then again, if you do not have money even to run the basic budget, where are you getting the money to put in for the stimulus package? That is also another different challenge that has been, of course, affecting this country known as Zimbabwe. The president, known as Emmerson Mnangagwa, of course, at some point, I believe did change the ministers responsible for the finance ministers. But nonetheless, I do believe that is also, it's not enough just to have a change of the ministers or the people responsible. There has also to be long-term solutions. Talking about the health crisis on the continent of Africa, I want to take us all the way to the DRC Congo. There has been some updates, and these have to do with Ebola. When you think that situations cannot get any worse, you hear of another Ebola case in the DRC Congo. And of course, right now there has been a lot of pressure on the health sector because of the COVID-19. But right now, the people of Congo have been asked not to panic because of the new case that have been reported of Ebola. We have many countries on the continent of Africa where Ebola have had an outbreak of Ebola. For example, if you go to the western part of Africa, countries such as Sierra Leone, at some point, in Liberia, at some point, there were also at the risk of Ebola. And of course, the government did act very, very quick. And they were trying to prevent the situation from escalating and becoming even worse. But there is a reason to worry, even if the government is talking about not worrying in the Congo. I believe there is a reason to worry. And this has to do with the matter of, the outbreak of Ebola. Every now and then people are worried that there is a new wave of Ebola coming. And of course, even if there is an appeal for calm, things are still very, very dire because there is also the pressure on, the health sector by the COVID-19. And then we're talking about now the matter of Ebola. This is what is happening. And this is in the DRC Congo. Of course, a case where there was one of the cases being reported over the Ebola.
Online shopping can be risky, but with Gigi, you can get together with.
This is the Matanda Hospital near Butembo, where Congo's latest Ebola case was admitted for treatment before she passed away. The alert level at the facility has been raised, with visitors told to wash their hands. Workers are also conducting temperature checks. Regional authorities have appealed for calm. The town of Butembo was not spared, especially since the patient had traveled from Mwenye to Butembo. She was buried in Musienene. It could happen because we know that she was the wife of an Ebola survivor. So it could happen. So we're here. People should stay calm and measures should be respected. The World Health Organization said on Sunday it had sent a team of epidemiologists to support their Congolese counterparts. It added that 70 people who came into contact with the victim had been identified and are being monitored. Butembo and Beni in eastern Congo were the epicenters of a previous outbreak which ran nearly for 2 years until June 25, 2020, which killed more than 2,200 people.
That is quite a huge number. 2,200 people, of course, are dying from Ebola. And at some point, the government had said that they had gotten a control of the situation under control. But nonetheless, you keep on hearing about one more village, one more place where there is also another case of Ebola, for example, that was just in Butembo. And now, of course, people also have to ask themselves what is happening. For countries such as Liberia, where there was that particular kind of a challenge, they did learn their lessons in terms of contact tracing. For example, even in the DRC, they're talking about having traced 70 people who are in contact with this particular lady, the individual who did succumb to Ebola. But of course, these lessons, I have not seen them. I have not been seeing them also translating into the approach of tackling COVID-19 in the DRC. But nonetheless, we are hoping that the government has the matters under control, and of course, even that particular team that was sent to go and help the matters on the ground. I do hope that they're going to do a great job, and of course, we shall be getting you updated. Nonetheless, there is also other news also coming in from the DRC Congo, and of course, these are news to do with the Senegalese hip hop star who goes by the name Akon. Akon has been doing a lot of work on the ground. But of course, right now there has been a new collaboration, not really a collaboration, but there has been a new signing. And this has to do with the launching of yet another business endeavor on the continent. And of course, this time it's in the mining industry in the DRC Congo. He has helped sign a deal to finance a copper and a cobalt mine in the Central African country in a joint venture with a state miner. And of course, this guy was running. This guy was running his mouth. There have been different sentiments regarding, the involvement of the Senegalese star. People have said that at some point he was talking about developing Africa. Of course, others now say he has moved from developing Africa now to start looting the same continent. But nonetheless, according to Reuters business, they have said that he has signed a deal with the mining sector of course, with the JV state company, according to Reuters. And of course, there are different sentiments. Like I said, there are different sentiments. He has been involved in different sectors, not just mining. I believe even in the energy industry, he has been seen to have some interest even in the energy industry. Like you said, people feel different. I do believe that if he can be able to contribute towards the development of these areas, I don't believe there's any problem with that. But if he is being used as a pawn, then there will be a very, very big problem. But of course, this is in a deal to finance a copper and a cobalt mine in the Central African country. There were some different sentiments that did say that he is being used by the Chinese. Because if you go back and look at his wealth, you might ask whether he has this much amount of money to be able to finance a copper and a cobalt mine. You might also be asking yourself the same, because you would need lots and lots and lots of money as Akon, as a hip hop artist or as an R&B artist. You would need really lots and lots of money to put in, to run the mining sector, either the cobalt or the copper mining sector in the DRC. But there have also been incidences, there have also been incidences sometimes back where we did hear about a copper mine, one of the mines being sold for just $1. I think the Chinese were actually getting to sell that particular one for just $1. And there were some different questions about this. But nonetheless, let me share this particular video when he was talking about the industry in Congo, and then we shall go back into the matter of the investment, of course, what is happening. There is also this particular individual on Twitter who said, "Don't be fooled by Akon's PR shenanigans. That whole thing was an advertising stunt for a Chinese mining company. Akon would sell Senegal to the highest bidder if he could. A lot of Senegalese people aren't happy with him at all." Yes, there is a very, very big caution, because he's actually serving as a pawn for the Chinese. I do believe that, you know, the amount of money maybe behind him perhaps is not money coming from his own, from his own accounts. You have to ask where, you have to follow the money trail to see what's happening with the situation with him being involved.
Africa is the only place in the world where Black people can go and build Fortune 500 companies from scratch within 5 years. China took that same, mindset 25 years ago. China was no different from Africa 25 years ago. Go to China now. Look at Dubai, the Middle East. They just started 15 years ago. Black people, for all our Black people, yes. Go back to Africa. Yeah. Whatever you're doing here, do it there.
The thing about Africa is that we have a history that's untold, even though it's told, but it's been told in so many ways, and it's been told from the likes of others who've marketed themselves to become leaders in their own universe. So when you look at a place like Africa that has so much history, so much resources, so many, as the culture of it, everything out of Africa has been adapted everywhere else to build there. But we've never utilized what Africa has to build Africa.
And the Chinese always been fair. Like this big propaganda that the Chinese are trying to use it, to me, I don't see it. I've seen nothing but fair deals. Unless you do a bad deal.
Of course, I do get to disagree with Akon to that particular point where he says that he hasn't seen any bad deal with the Chinese. And that is also where I get to raise my question about whether he's doing the bidding for the Chinese to come up and continue the loot on the continent of Africa, because everyone else has had their access to the resources in Africa, but the African has not benefited in any kind of a regard, whether it be the people coming from these particular areas. For example, in the northeastern part of Congo, there's a lot of resources, if you look at things like cobalt, things like copper, there is all these minerals that you can find in a place in the DRC. But right now, there has been the question of Akon's involvement. It's good when we can actually, build as a people, the diaspora, the people in the diaspora also coming back to the continent of Africa. But of course, there is a lot of a question in terms of the money trail. If you follow the money trail, you might find, this particular money deep in the pockets of the Chinese, and them trying to, talk about the joint venture with the state miners. And these might actually end up in the loot of the resources of the people of the DRC or the African people at large. But nonetheless, we shall keep tabs on that. There is also another different construction project in Senegal, and this one is also owned by Akon himself. And he has been constructing a hotel project. Let me show us this, so you can get to see what is happening in Senegal. And also the Senegalese people, I believe, really are not amused, are not really impressed. He is calling it the Akon City, and this is what is happening. Let me share with us this real quick. It's actually on Africa21.Africa. And this is a $6 billion futuristic city. And that is why I'm asking, I'm really much concerned about where the money is also coming from. I do not say there is anything wrong with trying to put in some investment on the continent of Africa, but I'm also saying, who is behind the funding of these particular projects? Because at the end of the day, there has to be questions really to be answered in regards to that. And this is a Akon City, a green city project, which is launched at the cost of $6 billion. $6 billion. And this is $6 billion, not 6 billion Senegalese dollars. This is actually 6 billion USD. And of course, this has been announced by the foundation after the laying of the foundation for the construction of this green city by the artist himself, who has taken advantage of his press briefing to talk about the cost of the project, which amounts to $6 billion, or nearly 80% of Senegal's budget for 2020, which is $7.6 billion, according to him. He said that one third of the budget is already available on the ground, and he is working to find the funding for the rest of the project for the money. Of course, this city has been ecologically certified as a futuristic city. It also different other kinds of benefits. Of course, some of it will be towards our hospitality sector, going into creating of of facilities where people can actually come in and maybe also get house in these particular areas in case you're coming in as a tourist, or in case maybe perhaps you're coming in as a foreign investor. This is an area where people are talking about finding the best hospitality. But nonetheless, going back to the question over the funding, who is funding this $6 billion project, and also who is funding the project in the Congo? The copper mines and the cobalt mines. These joint venture. There has to be also that particular question, because you also have to hold people accountable at the end of the day, because they might be talking about developing Africa, and that was a context. Even when King Leopold went into the DRC, King Leopold did kill over 10 million people in the Congo, which is a very, very big number, even compared to the Holocaust and everything else, because this is even underreported as 10 million. But even when King Leopold came on the continent and he went into the DRC, the same country, what happened is that he said he was bringing civilization and developing this particular place. And we all know what happened eventually. There was people also, being facing all sorts of trauma, working, under forced labor. And eventually all the materials were being looted for the interest or for the benefit of Belgium. And it might be a black person. It might be a black person who is being used as a frontier by the Chinese. And therefore, once again, I would just like to urge even the people on the ground working with the Senegalese superstar just to get to check and see what is going on with that particular matter as well, because it's very, very much important. Nonetheless, I just wanted to go on and touch on what is happening briefly in Sudan. Remember, this is a 54 correspondent show, and we just want to give you a different understanding on the continent of Africa. Sometimes the continent of Africa has been painted as somewhat negative, somewhat backward, somewhat, all the other negative aspects. But when we come here on the 54 corresponding show, we just want to give you a different image, or the actual image of the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa has immense potential, because we do have over 60% of the population being the young people. And therefore, if you are talking about developing as a continent, we do have the potential, because the labor is there. And not just the labor, but even the market. If you're talking about the next 30 years, in 2050, the population will almost have doubled. We'll have doubled. And therefore, we are talking about billions of people. And, that creates a market. And I'm seeing positive progress, because when you're talking about the market on the continent of Africa, there has also been the opening up of the continent by a program or by an initiative that is being known as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And the African Continental Free Trade Area, this one seeks to really open up the continent and remove the non-tariff trade barriers. And now, of course, if it eliminates 90% of these non-tariff trade barriers, it means more African countries can be able to trade among themselves. For example, Botswana and Namibia, maybe Tanzania and a country like Uganda, or Tanzania and Kenya, or Tanzania and Rwanda, or maybe a country like Kenya and Ethiopia. We shall be seeing, the potential being tapped into by using these Africa Continental Free Trade Area agreements that is bringing on board all these African countries. And I believe over 50 of the countries have ratified this particular agreement, and therefore that particular kind of potential will also be tapped into. And not just from internally, there is also the potential where we can have trade agreements between not just African countries, but even countries from outside Africa, to see that there is meaningful trade agreements that are actually supporting both sides, whether you are an African country or whether you are a country from maybe the Caribbean. These trade deals will also be very, very much important. Remember, I want to remind us all time and again that we do have the Tanzania trip, and we shall be heading to Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, in the month of April as a Blackwood Fire Network family. This is not the first time we are going to Tanzania. We were actually there last year in March, and we are hoping that perhaps this year as well we can even be a bigger number. Last week we did have 4 of us in Tanzania, but this particular time we are hoping that we can even be a larger group of about 10 or even more than 10. And therefore, you are not really late to join us on this particular tour. Feel free. And now, of course, if you do have any question, you can address them to kcnewsam15@gmail.com. That is kcnewsam15@gmail.com. kcnewsam15@gmail.com. And you will be able to get all the feedback regarding, the days, regarding the plans, or some of the places that you shall be visiting, and of course regarding, all around information regarding this particular trip. We have also been to Rwanda. And Rwanda is also really an exceptional place. It's called the Land of 1,000 Hills. and we are hoping that perhaps more frequently we shall be able to organize these particular trips. But nonetheless, that should not make you want to miss this particular one. It's actually going down from the 12th, from the 12th of April. TK, thank you so much for joining us on the show. You're saying peace to you too. TK, where are you tuning from? TK, I would like to know where you are tuning from. And of course, remember, you are also invited to join us on the Africa tour. It shall be to Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and also Tanzania, Zanzibar. Zanzibar is, of course, the island, and it's really, really wonderful. In case you haven't seen a bit of the images are from Zanzibar, let me try show you some of them. And this is a place where you find, some of the best beaches. These are, I could actually call them by any standards, international, because if there is any kind of rating over these particular beaches, I would also call them international standards. And let me show us briefly on what's good and what we can expect when we go to Tanzania. We shall be staying at a place known as Paju. And of course, this is also, there are different areas, the east area and the west area. We shall be touring both the east and the west of Zanzibar. Once you look at these, if you look at these, there are so many interesting things that you can be able to do once you are here. But these are just some of the images. I cannot really be able to experience or paint a picture or paint the perfect picture of the experience, because travel experience can only be experienced once you do the traveling yourself. I can come here and tell you, oh, it's really, really wonderful. But then again, I cannot be able to really paint the whole picture of the place, or paint the picture of the experience of you getting to, also get, into this wonderful, wonderful place. This, of course, is a place, of course, that is also giving investment opportunities. For example, if you go to Fumba.town, Fumba.town, and look for some of the places where you can decide that you can maybe own a holiday home, or maybe you might decide that you want to, just buy property and a rental property, for that particular reason. You might also decide to get those particular leads on this platform. It's known as a Fumba Town. It's inside Zanzibar, and it has a lot of potential. In case you want more information, just kindly search for Fumba, which is Fumba, and .town, Fumba.town, and there are all sorts of properties for sale, properties for rent, properties, commercial spaces that you might decide, or even homes that you can move in ready homes, where you just come with your with your family and decide, maybe this is where I want to spend my holiday, or even own this particular property, so that you can have a second home in Tanzania. I will not be able to go through all of these. I might not be able to go into Mwangani Apartments, Moyoni Apartment, Bustani Villas, the Fumba Greens, the commercial spaces, moving ready homes. I may not be able to go into all these, but these are places where the amenities have already been set up. When you get there, you don't have to worry about where your kids can go to school. When you go there, you don't have to worry about where people can get amenities such as, health amenities, clinics, dispensaries, and things like this. You are able to find all of those at this particular place. You can get into contact with this particular platform. Like I said, it's Fumba Town, and you can get to know, as as an African in the diaspora, how can you be able to engage with that particular kind of a platform, get some of this particular property. We shall be taking a short break. And of course, when we get back, we shall be telling us what is happening with the whole vaccine situation on the continent of Africa, because there are some countries that have already received the batches of the vaccines. Others, of course, have the vaccines, but they are holding, or they are actually halting the plans to inoculate the people. We shall be talking about South Africa for that particular matter. I shall also be letting you know what is happening in Morocco, as well as other different places on the beautiful continent of Africa. We shall take a short break. When we get back, we shall be telling you these and much more on what is happening, even with matters social economics and politics on the continent of Africa. This is Black Radio, media, 21st century. This is Black media, 21st century. Welcome back to the 54 Corresponding Show on the Blackwood Fire Network. We trust that you are doing well, and this is a 54 Corresponding Show where we get to talk about different trending and topical matters in Africa. And of course, I was telling us a little bit about the situation with the COVID vaccines and different African countries' approach. But before I get to update you on that, I just wanted to highlight briefly on this particular popular Nigerian proverb. And this particular proverb reads that only the thing that you have struggled for, only the thing for which you have struggled will last. Only the thing for which you have struggled will last. And of course, the people, of course, want things to come fast and are not even struggling for these particular things. And therefore, you get to realize that anything that you get, they actually also say easy come, easy go. I think that is also the other correct interpretation of the same. If you haven't struggled for something, you might also end up losing it very, very quick. And therefore, that is why that particular proverb reads, only the thing for which you have struggled will last. And there is also another popular Nigerian proverb which reads, and not to know is bad. Not to wish to know is even worse. Let me repeat that again. Not to know is bad, and not to wish to know is even worse. Which actually says that you might not know something which is really not bad, but then again, if you wish not to know, then that is even actually worse. I'm having a bit of a hit with the camera. Let me try see if we can. Sorry about the hit. We had a bit of a hit right there with the camera. But nonetheless, I was saying that these are some of the popular Nigerian proverbs. There is a lot of words of wisdom coming from Nigeria, whether be it Igbo wisdom or whether be it Yoruba wisdom. This is just wisdom coming all the way from West Africa. Easy come, easy go. But they also read it. They also translate and say it in their own way. Only the thing for which you have struggled will last. I don't know what you're struggling for at the moment, but nonetheless, that which you have struggled for. Let me also get to encourage it, because it will actually be there to stay. But now let's get away from that particular matter. I want to go into the issue of the vaccines on the continent of Africa. And of course, South Africa has halted its Astrazeneca vaccine rollout over the new variant. Recently, we have talked about the new variant, of course, which has been said to be even worse. And what has been happening is that recently there was the vaccines that were taken to South Africa, and the president, of course, received these particular vaccines. And what has happened, South Africa is a country that has recorded about 1.4 million COVID cases. Is actually the most hit on the continent of Africa. And I'm not even surprised to hear that now there's a different variant in this particular country, because they say that it has actually mutated. The virus has mutated, and therefore it has become even worse. But you also have to remember that South Africa has a very, very big, high population of the Mzungus. If you go to South Africa, you'll find a lot of Mzungus right there. And I believe some of them have also been hit by this COVID vaccine. That is why the numbers might be higher than any other place on the continent. And of course, South Africa has now stopped the rollout of the Oxford Astrazeneca vaccine on hold after the study has showed disappointing results against the new COVID vaccine variant. They're saying, the results of these vaccines are not really impressive when it comes to the new COVID variant. Like I said, it has mutated. And this particular mutation, of course, I was getting to ask ourselves, even on our former episodes of the show, that if you have gotten a vaccination, and then this virus gets to continue mutating, does it mean that then you have to continue, you have now to get another kind of vaccination? And of course, I believe there is a lot of confusion in South Africa. And I believe these confusion that has been put, it's not really It's planned. I do believe this is also a pandemic. Let me call it what it is. And the scientists say that the variant accounts for 90% of the new cases in South Africa. And I also do believe this is also another move, really, to try pin this whole virus on the African people, because they will now say whatever kind of a virus is going around the continent, this is a South African virus. That is what I do believe they will say. They will say this is a South African virus. And I actually do believe that, when they were going to do the test and are going to find out the origin of the COVID virus or the coronavirus, they actually did not come up with any conclusive information. I have not seen any conclusive information which actually says China to be the source, or which actually says the US to be the origin, or which actually says this and that to be the origin. And therefore, I do believe that is why there is a very, very big kind of a push to try and pin this one on South Africa, because they will now be comfortably saying that we have had the virus coming all the way from South Africa, and that is where we do have all these new variations are also coming in. But nonetheless, South Africa is said to have recorded almost 1.5 million coronavirus cases and more than 46,000 deaths since the pandemic began, a higher toll than any other country on the continent. And I see your comment, Keith. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. You're saying, isn't it funny? South Africa has the highest number of the virus, and you wonder why. That's why Ebola is back in the Congo, and you wonder why. Yes, they're saying that people should not be worried about the new case of the Ebola in the Congo, but the looting will still continue, because they are saying that they have traced the 70 people who are in contact with a woman who did have the Ebola, and it's crazy. And you're saying that people have been dying from the vaccine. But the South Africans are not learning. From what I understand, there is also another 2,000 people that have volunteered in South Africa for the same reason of the vaccines being tested on them. I do believe there have also been people who have volunteered in this particular place. There have been a new trial which has involved 2,000 people, and it's said to have found the vaccine offered them minimal protection against mild and moderate cases. South Africans never get to learn. Every other minute there are 2,000 people volunteering for a new study. And every other week, there's also, more and more studies being conducted on the South African people. And you wonder why there is a new strand. There is a new strand which is said to have come from a mutation of the original coronavirus. Of course, people of South Africa also have to ask themselves a very important question. And it's also a shame. It's also a shame to see that South Africa is a country that is seen to be the most industrialized. It seems to be the most industrialized, or one of the most developed countries on the continent of Africa, even when even talking about the health sector. If you compare the health sector of a country such as South Africa, and also compare other countries such as maybe Egypt, these two countries are seen to have to be the countries with the best healthcare systems on the continent of Africa, and maybe other countries such as Morocco. But if you look at the numbers of the cases also in these three countries, South Africa, Egypt, and also a country like Morocco, you get to realize that the numbers being reported are very, very high. And there is something not adding up in these particular countries, because how do you have the best healthcare system on the continent and also be the country that has been most hit? There are numbers that are not actually adding up at the end of the day. But nonetheless, the WHO has also come out. The WHO has also come out and said that they are worried, that they are cautioning against the stopping or the halting of the vaccinations. They have said that they are warning against the stopping of the vaccinations program. And I do believe that they are saying that the vaccinations should have continued, even if this Astrazeneca vaccine does not work. It does not work, or it just gives a minimal protection. And of course, this is one of the videos of one Professor Barry talking about the decision on the South African to stop the Astrazeneca rollout. I do believe maybe this has nothing to do, perhaps even with the minimal protection. I believe maybe perhaps they have realized.
Asking the question about serious.
I do believe that maybe perhaps this also has to do with the number of people and the kind of an impact it has. Let me share this briefly on the same, and then we shall continue with the conversation on the impact of stopping or continuing with the vaccinations.
Or disease or hospitalization. There were no deaths at all. I think in the sample there might have been one or two who got serious or hospitalized level disease. So you're talking about very, very small numbers, and that can't really provide with convincing data that in fact it will. It probably will. I think we're extrapolating that it probably will. But at the moment, it's obviously we can't take a vaccine which we don't have established information that it does work, certainly not for mild and moderate, that we know it doesn't. But for the severe infection, we still need a bit more work on that. And that's why we decided to suspend the rollout with this particular vaccine and substitute other vaccines for the rollout.
I suppose the focus also is on hospitalization now.
Yeah, look, our prime game, our prime aim and prime goal is to prevent serious disease and hospitalization. But obviously, we also want prevention of moderate disease, which has a severe effect on the economy, for example, and also mild disease. These are the health parameters we want to prevent. But you're right. I mean, clearly, the prime goal is serious disease and the loading of the hospitals.
So the question, I suppose, is what are the next steps then?
Well, the next step, the immediate step, obviously, is to get other vaccines. We're looking at the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine.
So the goal really there is really to have the South African people even are more confused with what particular kind of vaccine will actually be used. And amidst all this, right now they're saying that they want to switch that particular AstraZeneca one and now go to Pfizer or also go to the Johnson & Johnson vaccination. And I think South Africa will be the boiling point of everything. When it comes to people being taken out, as many people being taken out, I think South Africa, because of these kind of announcements, we do have people volunteering to be the ones being tested as the guinea pigs. We had talked about 2,000 people in the first instance, and now we're talking about some other even 2,000 people also being used in the second test. And there is something going on. How about that you really show them because stupid and let them just like that here with the black woman pastor who died in Virginia talking about let me show my people. I believe that is the kind of a thing that will be happening. We shall also be letting the South Africans, because I do believe South Africans have actually been told, so many instances on what is happening with this particular one. And the president right there already sold out the people. I do believe at the end of the day, the president, has already gotten their pay. And therefore, that is why we are hearing about the president being the one going to the airport, picking up the batches of these COVID vaccinations, and among other different things happening with this particular one. And there is something wrong. There is something wrong. People should actually wake up and realize there's something wrong. There's something going on with this rollout program of the vaccinations and why it's being conducted in the manner it is actually being conducted in. This is a president. Let me show us. This is a president himself, Ramaphosa, and he has been the one going out there and collecting these batches of the vaccinations to show people there is nothing to be worried about. I think that is what he was trying to do. You can see him here in the reflected jacket. Talking about the vaccinations and receiving them, but the opposition parties have taken the government to task over what they feel is a lack of information on the COVID-19 rollout program. There is not even a coordinated effort to try and tell the people what is going on, and therefore, because of this lack of information, I do believe that is why people are lacking also in a sheepish kind of a way in South Africa. And our own man in South Africa took a delivery of his first consignment of the COVID-19 vaccinations, and the government has identified 200 facilities across the country to administer the vaccination. They are talking about 200 facilities where there will be the administration of this particular rollout. But there has been a lot of secrecy as well, and also corruption and also failure on the government vaccine rollout plans, which have raised ire of the opposition parties. Like I said, there is not information regarding how it's being done. And, there is not a lot of information going on with that. But nonetheless, the opinion, follow the PPE scandal. The government is mindful of the corruption perception that has been created in the public domain and is working hard to disabuse us of the belief that the rollout will be botched. And this is according to News 24 in South Africa. There are many concerns regarding even the secrecy and also the corruption that will also is also surrounding this particular matter. But nonetheless, how about you really showed them? You're talking about the pastor who was saying, let me show people there is nothing to worry about this particular vaccine. And that is them setting up a police state globally with this fake bullshit and to depopulate the agenda. Yes, that is exactly what it is. And I agree with you, Kate. There is a depopulation agenda on the continent, and South Africa seems to be the hot or to be the place where all this will actually be starting to take place. Nonetheless, moving away briefly from that, I want to take us all the way into Sudan. And what has been happening in Sudan is that there has been an effort to try and involve. There has been an effort to try and involve the rebel chiefs in constituting a new government in Sudan. And of course, this particular one has to do with the government that is being put in place by the Prime Minister, who goes by the name Abdallah Hamdok. He did announce on Monday a new cabinet, bringing in 7 ex-rebel chiefs as ministers, following a peace deal in October aimed at ending decades of war. The veteran rebel leader and economist Jibril Ibrahim of the Justice and Equality Movement, which played a major role in the Darfur conflict, was appointed as Sudan's new finance minister. And we have reached a consensus in over 25 ministries, where we do have some of these rebel leaders also being involved with the new cabinet that has been put in place. But I also get to wonder, when you're talking about having a new leadership in a country, and then go for these rebel leaders, the rebel chiefs, and put them on your government, I do believe that at some point you are also bringing in a rotten eggs or rotten tomatoes and putting them in a basket of good potatoes, good tomatoes, and expecting that these will actually help, in stabilizing the particular country. I also do understand there is a need, of course, to bring in these other different functions in the government, but I do not know whether this is particularly a good move for Sudan, and whether bringing in some of the rebel chiefs to become ministers will actually help in the matter of reconstructing this particular country. You remember, there was a revolution in Sudan, and there was the ouster of the former president who goes by the name Omar Bashir. And when they did put in place that particular revolution, there are so many people that did lose their lives. But some years down the line, we are also still facing the same challenges that we did have earlier on, where we did have, the kind of a leadership that is not proper for the nation. And we might also go back the same kind of an era of a repressive or oppressive leadership in Sudan. But nonetheless, we shall wait and see how this particular one goes out. And we shall see if there is any kind of a change for this particular country. Nonetheless, I wanted to go back into a matter I had raised earlier on, and this has to do with, Akon. And Akon has signed a mining deal. He has signed a mining deal. And of course, Twitter has given there has been different sentiments given on different social media platforms after Akon has signed a mining deal for financing of a cobalt mining project, and also a copper mining project, copper and cobalt. In the DRC, they do have a lot of resources in terms of minerals. And I was saying that copper is in plenty, cobalt is also in plenty. And we had also talked about the situation with, Rwanda. Rwanda is said to be one of the exporters of cobalt, whereas the actual cobalt is actually found in the DRC. But of course, that is why we do have a lot of fighting in some of the areas in the DRC Congo. But the thing is, you have to look at the financing. I was saying you have to look at the financing. The people of the DRC should also be very, very worried, because I do believe this is a man who is being used as a front by the Chinese to go on and run some of these particular. Someone went on Twitter, and Mr. Omari was saying this guy was running his mouth about developing Africa. Now he's joining in with the looting. And of course, that is according to a new post that was put out by Reuters Business, saying that he has signed a mining sector deal with a state company to continue in the financing of the mining of cobalt and the mining of copper. And there are also other different sentiments are given, of course, on Twitter. For example, Mr. Barbecue Fish said, "Don't be fooled by Akon's PR shenanigans. That whole thing was an advertising stunt for the Chinese mining company. Akon would sell Senegal to the highest bidder if he could. A lot of the Senegalese people aren't happy with him at all." Yes, I do believe the funding of this particular project, of course, if you go back very, very well, you realize that might be in the hands or the pockets of the Chinese. The Democratic Republic of Congo, of course, is Africa's top producer of copper and the world's leading miner of cobalt. If you go to the DRC Congo and realize it's actually the world's leading miner of cobalt, I don't believe there is any other country in the world which has mined cobalt in the amounts that it's being mined in the DRC Congo. And of course, the country has suffered economic exploitation because the natural resources are there, but the hands of the Western entities go in and take out all these resources. And of course, there's not a lot of media attention going into regards of where the money goes. At the end of the day, the money does not even benefit the people of the DRC. If you look closely, you will realize that if you look at these communities where these minerals are exploited from, for example, if you go to the eastern part of the DRC, the northeastern part of the DRC, you will find a lot of mining and insecurity. People fighting because of the leadership or the control of these particular areas. And at the end of the day, you realize that, even if you look at the people, the locals, they do not benefit from any kind of, returns coming in from the exploitation of these minerals. I also do believe the government has failed. The government lacks a proper military. One of the things that is lacking in the DRC, it's the lack of a proper military. I believe the military was weakened, and they have not, found the need also to invest in proper military, defense, not just defense, but also military force, which would also be able to protect the minerals. You do find, because of the pettiness and the greed by some of the leaders in this particular country, you do find most of them really just focusing on what they get, what's in it for themselves, what can they benefit, or what can they get for their own personal gains. We were talking about sometimes back one of the mines in the DRC being sold for $1, and of course you wonder, why is the mine being sold for $1? It's because there was a lot of insecurity, and I believe the Chinese company, of course, was saying that they cannot be able to protect themselves or protect their own interest. But if you go back also last year, there was a case where the Chinese have been buying out. For example, there was a buying over 95% of the DRC copper cobalt mine from the DRC by the Chinese. Let me share this briefly, and then you can see the kind of thing that is happening with the Chinese and the exploitation of the resources in Africa. Because I do believe, as a people, we have lacked, even self-preservation, and we are ready to sell these mines to the highest bidder, and people not even getting to benefit from anything. China Moly buys 95% of the DRC copper cobalt mine from Freeport for $550 million, of course. And of course, the China Molybdenum company said on Sunday it had acquired 95% stake in the Kinsafu copper cobalt mine in the DRC Republic of Congo from the US-based Freeport McMoran Inc. for $550 million. The Chinese company takeover of the developed Kinsafu project was discussed as early as 2016, and of course, boosts revenue in the DRC, the world's top producer of the battery metal cobalt. And of course, our China Moly already operates in the giant Tenke mine. And I was saying, at the end of the day, if you look at what people are benefiting, what the people on the ground are actually benefiting from, there is really nothing. Kinsafu, which is around 33 kilometers or 20.5 miles southwest of Tenke, Fungurumi, holds an estimated 6.28 million tons of copper and about 3.1 million tons of cobalt metal, according to the filing which was mentioned. And I believe there is also an underreporting in these numbers. They will not talk about the actual potential in these mines. You shall find some of them talking about 6.28 million tons, while maybe there is even about 600 million tons of the same copper, and also maybe about 300 million tons of the cobalt metal, which is used in making of computers and making other different gadgets that are very, very much important. But we also do lack on the continent. We are lacking manufacturing concerns. If we did have our own manufacturing concerns on the continent, I do believe that perhaps most of these minerals we can be able to use, most of these mineral resources, we could be able to use them as the African continent. But they have not been direct investment. They have not been direct or even foreign investment in terms of manufacturing, because you go and export the cobalt from the DRC and maybe take it to Europe, or maybe take it to the US, or take it to China. And then there is a making of these gadgets, and then the gadgets are sold back in the DRC, or the gadgets are sold back into Africa at 100 times more the value of these particular minerals that you sent out. And therefore, it's like, the Africans have not found a way of also getting to, figure out how, we can be able to, make the most of our own resources as a people on the continent. Sister Michelle of the BOB World Club, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I think you're up early. You haven't seen you join us on the 54 Corresponding Show. But thank you so much for joining us on the show. But like I was saying earlier, if Africa was to focus really heavily on processing and manufacturing, then I do believe that is the only way to get out of this particular cycle, because Africans really have been poor, but the continent is not poor. Africa is not poor. The Africans might be poor, They might be languishing in poverty, but the continent itself is not poor. Like I said, go to the DRC and look at those vast reserves of cobalt, the vast reserves of copper as well. But then again, ask yourself, is there any manufacturing and processing concerns in this particular country? And you get your answer. There is not any manufacturing concerns in the DRC because at the end of the day, what happens is there is a lot of fighting, and this fighting has continued so many years. And you ask yourself, who are the people who are funding the fighting in the DRC? These are interests, of course, foreign interests. They are not even local people, because local people, like I said, they are languishing in poverty. You cannot even be able to go out there and put in your money. I don't believe the money is coming from the inside. But nonetheless, you say, I always get up early. Are you up early? It's a good thing to wake up early, because you're able to do much better planning for everything that you're going about, all the endeavors for your day. You'll be able to do much more better planning and achieve more. But if Africa was to focus on manufacturing, and I believe also the diaspora also has a role to play. And I'm not talking about the diaspora such as Akon, because I believe Akon is just a front for the Chinese. You might see a black face on it and think Akon is doing the most and he has the best interest. But this is just him being used really to loot, to continue with the looting. Like I said, he did sign a contract recently with a state miner, with a state company, to venture into the financing of a copper and a cobalt mine in the DRC. But I was saying people have known him for what it is. And now, of course, Twitter, of course, is waking up, and people have actually called him out for what it is. He is actually that was a PR shenanigans with him talking about the investment. And also, if you look at the other project that he had invested in, the Akon City in Senegal, I believe I showed us the Akon City in Senegal, which was a 6 billion project. I believe maybe the backing or the financial backing of this particular one really might not even be any black concern. This is really the Chinese putting in their money. But nonetheless, we do need manufacturing concerns, that I do not dispute. But you also have to look at the long term. The long term, where is this money coming in from? And also, is it going to benefit the people, the local people at the end of the day? I believe it might create some employment, but also it has to also be genuine at the end of the day. And we as a black people, like I said, in the diaspora, there is much potential to come together and unite, and perhaps invest in different sectors. You can invest in the mining sector. If Akon has been said to invest in this particular sector, whether he is a front for the Chinese or not, if he has been able to get his foot inside, I also believe that as a diaspora, there is immense potential in terms of investment in different sectors. It could be the mining sector, it could be the health sector, it could be the technology sector, it could be other different sectors in which we can be able to build, and put in the skills. Because I do believe, for example, the African in the diaspora, the black people in the diaspora, we do have the potential, because you do have the knowledge. You do have perhaps even the funding. You might have the funding, better funding than as the people on the ground here. And therefore, I do believe I want to just make this particular call for the people. If you are able to come up with an investment fund which is genuine, and have what is lacking is also a bus. Let me call it a bus, not really the bus in the physical sense of it, but a group that can be used as a tool to invest on the continent of Africa. As a black people, we are really hard on agreeing on one thing. But if we did have a bus or a tool to be able as an investment umbrella, let me call it an umbrella, not a bus, an investment umbrella, then perhaps the work can be done right here on the African continent with the help of the Africans, the diaspora, and also the Africans on the African continent. That is my call for the people to unite and change the destiny of, tell the story about the continent of Africa. We are coming to the ending of the show. We are coming to the winding up to the end of the show. But I want to thank everyone that has joined us on this particular broadcast. We get to bring our minds together as an African think tank. We are not just talking about the problems on the continent. We also want to talk about the solutions and how the solutions can be achieved. And I believe if we came together as a people, we can be able to get some solutions and get some work done on the continent and even off the continent. Once again, much peace and love. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I want to wish you a happy and a productive day ahead. Remember to join us on the other episodes of the Voices of the Motherland with Kami, as well as also the Africa Today show later on the Black Hot Fan Network. Till then, much peace and love. I want to say kwaheri. This is Black Radio Media.